All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome. We're up to the 180th Scientific Governance and Risk meeting here at MakerDAO. My name is Peyton. I go by Pros11 online, and I'm one of the governance facilitators here. I'm joined by a bunch of awesome Maker people who both work for the protocol, care about it, and wish to engage with it. And this is our weekly call where we discuss what's going on, what needs to be considered by the DAO. As usual, we do have a bit of an agenda to get through. I'll go over some housekeeping first. As you may have noticed, this is being recorded. This meeting is being recorded. So please try not to talk over one another. Also, we do encourage it to be like an open meeting. So we want you to ask questions, give feedback, engage in the conversations. However, obviously we want to do it respectfully. So you can use the raised hand feature here on Zoom if you'd like to be recognized as part of a queue. Otherwise, feel free to hop in and speak when there's a moment to do so. If you're unable to use your mic or otherwise unwilling to do so, you can drop a comment in the sidebar and we'll try to bring it up when conversationally appropriate. Yeah, I think that's most of the stuff we tend to cover. So let's get started. Thanks for joining, by the way. As usual, we'll kick things off with our governance roundup, give you an idea of what's going on with our official votes, our MIPs process, and what is happening in the forum. There are no initiative updates today, and a pretty light discussion topic. We have a presentation for the ambassador program. So we'll be able to talk about that at length, and I suspect have some time for open discussion as well today. So if there are other topics you wish to discuss, you might start thinking of them now and dropping them in chat. Or just writing them down so you can bring them up later when time permits. Awesome. Well, I will take us to governance then and let you know what's been going on. It was a fairly white week for polls, at least in terms of new ones coming on. We had 2 weekly polls that went up, both of which passed. One is the Open Market Committee's rates proposal. The other is adding a rate limiter to the flap auctions. Both of those passed. There is, however, one ongoing green light poll that is for the Punk in NTFX CryptoPunk collateral. Always want to say NFT there. And finally, in our MIP segment, we'll go over the conclusion of the ratification polls. Those ended on Monday for the February cycle. Awesome. So that should take us to our executive vote. Last week, we did have a bit of contention around the executive, so maybe that's something we wish to talk about today, maybe not, but it was ultimately passed and executed. That contained the GUSD PSM max debt ceiling increase, as well as retroactive delegate compensation. As you'll know, not everything from the polls made it into our planned executives for tomorrow. It is quite crowded exec poll-wise. So we decided that delegate compensation will be in there. We'll have the core unit budget transfers and new streams for the newly applied budgets, as well as the parameter changes they're mentioned in that Maker Open Market Committee proposal. You can always check out our governance tracker to see what's going on live. But yeah, that's what's planned for tomorrow. Awesome. That'll take us through to our MIPS update. And today we actually have a different presenter. So I'm happy to welcome Gala from the GovAlpha core unit, who's telling you what's going on in MIPS land today.
Thank you, Pros. Can you hear me well?
Loud and clear.
Awesome. So this is Gala from GovAlpha. Pablo insisted that I do the presentation this week, so hopefully he won't regret it at the end. So let's go to the ratification polls. This week, they close this week, and we can take a look at the outcome. So for this week, we have accepted MIP 60, intangible asset assignment. Dennis was onboarded as the new DAX facilitator. We have adjusted the budgets for risk, CES, and IS core units. And MIP 55 was amended for increased clarity. The Tech Ops Keeper network was onboarded, and the community has rejected the onboarding of Maker Talent core unit. So that's it for the ratification polls. Let's take a look at the proposals in RFC now. So if we can go to the next slide. Yeah, awesome. So these proposals are eligible for March governance cycle, most of them. And they have now entered their frozen period. First, we have MIP 61. So it's delegate compensation. It's still being trialed, and I believe it won't be enter March cycle. So it's open for feedback, and it will hopefully enter April cycle. Next, we have the core units budgets. There's two DAI budgets, one for RealWorld finances and the other one for Gov Alpha. And also we have the MKR compensation plan from Gov Alpha. Then there's the core unit offboarding. So MIP 41C5 offboards the MakerDAO shop core unit. This doesn't exactly comply with the offboarding process that we formalized in MIP 39. The process itself has proven to be inconvenient, and people are currently working on it to improve it. So we believe MIP 41C5 is good enough in this case, as this core unit has no budget to remove, and the circumstances of its offboarding have been made abundantly public. Then for the amendments, we have 3 amending proposals. The MIP 4C2 SP15 amends MIPs 39, 40, and 41, which together they define the core unit framework to improve the current core unit offboarding process. For instance, it will remain in RFC status, so it's open for comments and feedback. Then MIP 4C2 SP17 amends MIP 64, which defines the bug bounty program run by Immunifi security to make small payments more agile. This entails a modification to Immunifi security previous budget. And then we have MIP 4C3 SP1 that clarifies the budget amount on MIP 64. It was a minor change to avoid confusion. So just on the side, MIP 4C3 sub-proposals amend MIPs that are younger than 3 months. They go through the weekly cycle. They have a 1-week feedback period in this case, and before going on chain, a signal request needs to pass with 51% plus. So finally, there's a renewed mandate for the governance communications core unit, whose goal is to adjust the accuracy of the mandate and to provide enhanced accessibility to the core unit's documentation. It will be eligible for April's cycle. Then there's 2 proposals for to further onboard 2 keeper networks, and a declaration of intent to invest in short-term bonds as a solution to MakerDAO having its balance sheet composed of around 60% stable coins. So as a reminder for everyone, the formal submission window for March governance cycle opens next Monday. If you're planning on having a proposal enter April cycle, make sure you post it by Wednesday, March 9th, so next Wednesday at the latest. And that's all for MIPS. Thank you very much, everyone.
Nice job, Gal. Very thorough, and we appreciate you coming on and sharing the progress here.
Thank you.
Awesome. So next up will be our forum update. Looks like Artem is ready to go on that one.
Yep. Testing. All right. Guess you guys can hear me. So welcome to the forum update. So quick change up on how I'm posting. I'm going to be posting the day before the GNR, just for the fact that posting midday does confuse some posts. Like some posts will be come out after the GNR and after the 4-minute glance, but would include posts before then. So just to clarify, they're going to be posted the day before. And there's just one announcement post for the GNR, and the rest are discussions. So we'll actually start up with welcoming our new recognized delegate who stepped into the ring, welcoming Fig and his governance team at Flipside Crypto, acting as the first group delegate in Maker history. And the team operates in various DAOs and communities, such as Aave, SushiSwap, ENS, Olympus DAO, and others. Flipside Crypto believes there's plenty of room for improved proposals, a greater understanding of governance landscape, and stronger relationships with key players and stakeholders. And they believe that this is best achieved through governance education, fair distribution of voting power, and incentivization and engagement. Both Flipside Crypto and Do presented their delegate platforms on Wednesday, yesterday, March 2nd, during the Meet Your Delegate number 10, and the video recording is now up on YouTube. And moving on to our discussions, Alan Peterson has submitted an informal poll proposing that Maker lend between 1 to 5 million DAI to Ukraine to aid their ongoing war effort. If the community supports the idea, Oasis Pro Markets and Monetalis have pledged to help execute it using real-world collateral. Community discussion is currently ongoing to decide the best approach with sending the DAI while still preventing Maker from any political and government involvement. So check out the post, vote, and submit your feedback or opinions. And next up, Bastion his idea for a decentralized clearinghouse for stablecoins and how much such an entity could fit in with Maker. He calls the idea Clearing DAO and describes it as a PSM-like interface that is a money market in the background where you can convert DAI, and in the background, Maker will issue a dollar equivalent loan to the Tribe protocol. Seb explains that this helps solve two problems. One, it provides price equivalence to all major DeFi stablecoins. And two, it moves the supply and demand imbalance from the price itself over to the interest rate that the stablecoin issuers will pay each other. Clearing DAO will be a piece of his aforementioned ALM framework. It would be a short-term maturity item with a low yield, and the risk would depend on the maturity of the stablecoin issuers. Now, there's nothing in the pipeline for this year, 2022, as of yet, but Sebastian promotes the community to leave their feedback on the proposal. And next up, we have Maker Academy and SES who seek feedback on what Maker Academy should focus on when producing new educational content. They provide multiple question forms covering various topics for improving education that require your thoughts and opinions. The questions are pretty short, so go check them out and tell them what you think. And for our last discussion, MakerMan made an extensive post discussing the Maker collateral custody centralization that we have. So right now, USDC, Wrapped BTC, and USD Paxos each account for over 500 million worth of collateral. Because these assets are issued and controlled by centralized entities, there is the potential that this collateral could be removed at any given moment. MakerMan argues that we still don't completely understand the effect if such an event were to happen, especially on MKR market cap and DAI adoption. So he outlines both a set of potential solutions and a set of questions that these issues raise. Now, the post is merely a request for discussion on a topic we see becoming more important. At some point, Maker may have to take the risk to move away some of its centralized activities in order to maximize its growth and reduce potential risk. And now we're moving on to our signal requests over the week. So a little change up. I'm actually going to explain the signal requests that happened over the week as well. The GFX Lab signal request to implement their proposed governance mining trial ended yesterday and did not pass. Responses to the signal discussed that the amount of delegation and delegates themselves are not the issue, but instead that we need to focus on improving governance, education, and welcoming high quality delegates that are willing to spend time and effort to produce the best voting decisions for the protocol. So in conclusion, quality over quantity. And next up, We have Kat's request to fund the ambassador's pilot program, which ended this week and has passed. The ambassador's program funding has been disrupted by the offboarding of the content production core unit. In response, Kat's pushing the pilot program without any core unit and is signaling for a budget of 25,000 DAI. There's still some discussion around what additional evergreen material will be used and how will the output quality be quantified. So she's actually speaking up later, so that'll be fun. And next up, we have Psychonaut, who believes the simplest method for improving maker liquidity is to add protocol-owned DAI MKR LP shares to the UniV2. He asks the community whether Maker should allocate 20 million to a protocol-owned UniV2 MKR DAI LP, and presents his argument that the pros do outweigh the cons. The poll closes today, so vote if you haven't. And finally, well, actually, there's another signal, right, to fast track. So I didn't add that in, but I'll quickly review it after this one. But in response to the executive temporarily disabling burn and surplus auction since Flappy Friday, Shupi asks the community whether the protocol should return to the previous partial burning configuration as agreed in November of last year, but only if the rate limiter has been installed and an initial configuration for the rate limiter has been set. And before we quickly continue, yeah, I didn't notice this in the active signal request until just now, but there's a signal request for real world asset fast tracking, where Longfu Wisdom asks, should we allow users and arrangers that meet the requirements in the fast tracking signal request to attempt to onboard their collateral structure via temporary fast track process for the next month. And next steps would be to propose a signal request as soon as the requirements are met in parallel to the general signal. I'll add it for the next signal request. Sorry about that.
All good, Artem. We've posted it yesterday, so
Okay.
makes it a little tighter for you to get it all together. But appreciate the update.
But yeah, that's it for the verbal form of the forum review. Check out the forum at a glance that I posted yesterday. It has 3-point summary, more announcements, mostly recurring things, and also ongoing initiatives and help wanted. And also a shout out to Ashton, my new writer and editor, who has been helping write the forum at a glance.
Right on. Appreciate it, Ashton. Cool. So as mentioned earlier, we have no initiative updates today, so we're going to dive right into our discussion segment, which I guess also doubles as a presentation of sorts. So I'm going to kick it over to Kat to talk to us about the ambassador program.
Hey everyone, I'm Kat. I've been around here for a while, but I'm currently running the ambassador program. And hola y bienvenido a nuestros amigos latinoamericanos. So we can do the next slide. So hi. So the ambassador program seeks to engage with and provide resources for non-English speaking communities who would like to learn more about MakerDAO and DAI. We are currently doing our pilot in Latin America because that is our largest demographic other than English speaking. We provide two-way translation services, so Spanish to English and English to Spanish currently. And we also, in addition to providing translation services, engage communities with meetups locally and virtually. We also have created online communities for Spanish language MakerDAO interested people. And we also share resources that were produced in the ambassador's native language back to English so that we can also utilize those resources. So the next slide. There we go, sorry. So the ambassadors are translators. So we translate weekly material and also ongoing material, which I'll talk about in a little bit. And then also we are community developers, managers, and organizers on and offline. So we are bringing MakerDAO to new communities and engaging them in their own language so that they can participate. Let me see here. Okay. So the ambassador program was formerly being piloted with the content production core unit. Was offboarded. It was adapted from the GovCom's translation program. And also there was formerly the DI action group, but they're no longer in existence. There's a large amount of want and need for educational materials in other languages, especially in Spanish. And since we've created accounts and groups for this program, we've received a large wave of like, thank you so much, this is appreciated, this is needed comments, and as well as people being excited for considering a Spanish speaking audience that I often felt forgotten. So let's fill you in on what we've done so far. All right, I see you. So the first thing that we did was create an infrastructure for the team so that we'd have cohesive voice and consistency in our content. And a big thank you to Sebastian, who helped take the lead on this. We created a translation guide to ensure that translations are consistent, as well as workflow, which prioritizes tasks, as well as rotates tasks so that each ambassador has exposure to every material. And if an ambassador was to be absent a week, then nobody would have a problem taking over their content. We also have ongoing projects. We've actually just completed 50. So those are longer term projects like translating our evergreen content. So we also completed a content audit in English and Spanish language resources so that we could prioritize which things should be translated first, and then also which things should be translated from Spanish to English. We can do the next slide. Perfect. So in the future, we would like to continue translating our weekly governance material. And then also we'd like to translate evergreen material. Our like the Maker operational manual, community portal, Maker docs, you see, and also organization of meetups and continued growth of online communities. If we could go back, I want to talk a little bit about just the progress on social media. There we go, thank you. Since we've started this pilot, we have made a huge amount of progress on the Maker operation manual. We also translated the how to vote video subtitles, which is the educational material we were given. We'd love to work with other core units in the future when there is more educational material and content produced. We also ran 2 virtual meetups that had quite a bit of attendance. And that also led to a lot of engagement on our Twitter, Telegram, and also the Discord channel and Latin America and MakerDAO forum. Yeah. I think that we can go to questions. Yeah. Or actually, I'm looking in the chat now here. So translations to what languages right now, our pilot program is in for Latin America in Spanish. In the future, if this pilot goes successfully and we're able to create our own core unit or join another core unit, we'd like to see this expand to other regions. Asia, Eastern Europe would be some of the larger ones. Also, Latin American in Portuguese instead of Spanish would also be very helpful.
Yeah, I guess can you go over, like, you know, I saw some people talking about in the forum,
Mhm.
like, why don't we just pay these people in source cred? In my opinion, that I think the source cred trickle is maybe nice, but probably not enough to cover the scope of what you're trying to do. Just maybe add a little bit on that, why this is warrants slightly more budget than what source credit itself pays out.
Right. So
What you're doing.
I'm sorry, could you repeat that?
I'm for what you're doing. So, but some people had just said that, like, why doesn't SourceCred pay for this?
Of course, yeah. So this is professional translation material, and it's not just participation, like online or participation in the DAO. This is actual like professional work that does need to be paid for, you know.
Also, I don't think it was covered here. I think like you first are looking for like a preliminary budget for the first quarter. See how this is going. I think you're asking for a very small amount of money, and then if everyone likes it, then expand the budget in the future, right? But the first quarter of this, I think you were asking for a very small amount of money, which I think the DAO can definitely provide.
I would agree, and yeah, thank you. But yeah, I think this is more like it is. We need trained professionals to do this, and so therefore we do need to provide more incentive than just SourceCred. The cost of running the program for a year would, so at its current state right now, that would be our budget times 4, so 100,000 a year. That does not include any salary for me who is running it. This is just to pay our 3 ambassadors. Yeah. I would like, I mean, I think that if this goes well and it grows, then the cost would be larger because we would expand to more regions. The Twitter hasn't been so active, seeing around 3 tweets so far. Any plans to make it more active? Yes, so we did just start that Twitter account, I think about a month ago or whenever that first tweet was. So that is part of our pilot program. Already it has a huge amount of engagement and followers, and we do seek to make it more active. We need our content to be able to post, but we are, like we posted today about our new welcome thread in the Latin American forum, and then also about this governance call today to have people join. So we are planning on making that much more active, but it's just a very new Twitter account. But it's already doing really well.
Yes,
let's see.
it's another one that people might be thinking is, you envision this spinning off into a new core unit, or do you think this ambassador program could become sort of a subsidiary of another core unit that already exists, so that you don't have to become a facilitator managing all budgets and all that sort of stuff?
Yeah, so I think that it does make sense to be its own core unit, but also if the community or another core unit would like to take it on and take that responsibility, that would be wonderful. But I will do it if I need to, and I do think it makes sense for this to be its own core unit. Sorry, I'm just reading through the questions. I'm a little bit of a slow reader, sorry. Any plans for translating MakerDAO.world? Yes, that is our community portal, and that is one of our top priorities. Do you believe it's to focus on one or a few social channels, for example? With regards to social channels, I think that it very much depends regionally. Is it better to focus on Discord instead of Telegram, or so where we've seen the largest community is Twitter and Telegram. We are driving people to the Discord and the forum, but it also does very much depend regionally, right? So like Latin America, Telegram might be a larger thing. In like Asia, WeChat, larger thing. So the reason but the ambassadors are doing more than just translation work, they're doing ambassador work, is so that we know where to post these things, where to contact the community that we're actually trying to contact, right? Let's see. So the goal to attract diverse talent stakeholders, DAI users, vault users. So we'd like to just, I think that we'll be able to get all of those. Right now, the content that we are able to translate is a little bit more technical, and for people who are interested in participating in the MakerDAO community governance and at a larger larger role than just holding DAI. We would like to, of course, increase DAI users and other things, but we need the content to be able to do that. Did I answer everyone's questions? Or yeah.
I actually have a quick question, and from my personal experience, somebody might ask you this sooner or later, but do you have any ideas or potential strategy on how you might, I guess, like quantify or analyze the value of the translations? Because somebody's probably going to ask that sooner or later.
Of course, yeah. So I think that we'll be able to see through our click-throughs and analytics, and then also through our growth of the community, just like new users signing up to forum and participating in the Latin American portion of it. I don't know how to get those analytics currently, but I'm sure that we can, and that would be able to be quantified.
Okay, yeah, I'm actually currently trying to get API access to get Google Analytics on Discourse as well. So if anything, I'll update you.
Perfect, thank you.
Yeah, I'll mention one word of support for this. I mean, this is pretty basic baseline internationalization expansion strategy. Like we can't even hope to begin to grow in these other markets until we have like the right sort of translation infrastructure. And you know, I've worked for a number of companies that have expanded internationally, and this is a pretty standard you know, first step. So I'm very much in support of funding this experiment.
Yeah, it also +1.
Thank you, guys.
I know, one question that's come up from the governance side is if you've thought about how you plan to implement the trial process, like in terms of administering the funds and reporting how they were spent.
Yes, so we do have, I am just waiting on one confirmation for my multi-sig, and I will have a lovely post that wraps everything up for that currently, but we will have a 2 out of 3 multi-sig with specified dates and milestones to reach to make sure that we're on track.
So just sort of tangentially regarding multisigs, as some of you might know, I have a 1-of-1 multi. Actually, I don't have a multisig. I may in my next budget move to a multisig, but so after the whole fiasco with content production, it seems like it does matter who's on the multisig. I don't know how it's exactly done right now, but I think the multisig should probably be, at least in part, made of other core unit facilitators or people meaningful in the community, separate from the actual people in the core unit. That's a tangential topic.
So there's a couple things there, Andrew, right? On the one hand, yeah, the DAO does want some more security guarantees, but on the other hand, you have a huge inefficiency, right? If a core unit can't, control a multi-sig on its own, right? So depending on the number of transactions that you have to do, if you have to rope in other core units every time you need to make any kind of transaction, this is just not going to scale, right? It's really not viable at all. I think the best that we can kind of hope for is that, okay, if a core unit does want to run off with the money that they've been allocated, okay, they can do that. There's not really much you can do to stop it without, you know, crippling the core unit's ability to execute. And I think between those two, we should err towards the not crippling the core unit side. What you really want to protect for, and this is what we can actually fix, is in the event that, you know, there is you know, some kind of accident, or there is some kind of bad blood, right, with some member, that you are not dependent on the facilitator or the members of that core unit to play along, right, where other facilitators or other people that governance thinks should be on these multisigs, right, can pull the funds back, right? That's what we're protecting from here, right? It's the former scenario you have no hope of kind of defending against.
Interesting. Maybe, you know, just another thought that popped in my head, I guess, like the core unit has a main wallet that is a multi-sig that is held by whatever other core unit facilitators, and then that could be accessed whenever it's necessary, and then a portion of the budget goes into another wallet that is held by just people from the facilitators, from the group itself, and they can spend that as they need, but when they want to tap into larger parts of their budget.
I mean, this only really works when you're running a budget surplus. So when you're spending less than what you expected in your budget,
Right.
Which really should not be the case. I think it is pretty common at the moment. It certainly is for my core unit that we're spending significantly less than we budgeted for, but that's more a symptom of a problem than it is really a normal thing that you can rely on to create this mechanism of, okay, you know, you have this multi-tier kind of ladder of multi-sigs or whatever to try to get some kind of protection.
Yeah, it
Right.
might
Like the streaming of the payments is supposed to be that you're, you know, spending what you need to spend, right? You are allocated what you need to spend every month.
Yeah, might just be overcomplicating it. If I think it's just a risk that we assume when we hand over a core unit budget, and we assume the money is gone. If they run away with it, that was the L we take, and if they don't run away with it, that's great. Yeah, probably everything the way it is fine. It was just like seeing the fallout of that, like how can we mitigate that? But the way we mitigate it is just not voting in people like that again.
Yeah, really, like if people are budgeting appropriately, right, then the most a core unit can run away with is, like, you know, say 1 month or 2 months worth of budget, right? If we're budgeting inappropriately, right, that's when you get these giant surpluses within the multi-sigs, right, that now are like these lump sum payments that core units could run off with that are, you know, substantial in terms of loss to the DAO, right? So really the way you combat this is just to kind of be a little more prudent with respect to what budgets, like when it comes for a budget time renewal for core units, right? Well, what did you spend last year, right? And what changes are you trying to make this year that would corroborate, you know, more spend in certain areas or whatever, right? Like if you asked for a 200K legal budget, right, but you only ended up spending 50K of that, right? There's no reason to ask for a 200K legal budget next year, right? So just really simple things like that.
Yeah.
Awesome. Appreciate the discussion. Do you want to draw back to the ambassador program here and see if we have any other questions or comments before moving on to other topics?
Question, is there a breakdown?
So budget breakdown?
So it'll, in terms of cost per session or action? We do have hourly rates for the ambassadors, and we do have a budget breakdown of how that will go monthly throughout this pilot. Yes, that'll be shared later today when we confirm our multi-sig. Later topics. Okay. I think ambassadors, any last questions? Then you guys can talk all about multi-sig. All right. Thank you so much, guys. Gracias mucho.
Yeah, thank you, Kat. Really appreciate the presentation. And like we said, that was an active signal on the forum. It will be going up for polling, assumingly on Monday, as long as those implementation details are posted. So awesome. That should take us through with our kind of planned discussion topics. We've had a lot of stuff in the chat here to facilitate with open discussion, which is really awesome. The first one to ask for it to be part of this portion was Luca, who wanted to talk about the reward assets fast tracking signal.
Thanks, Pros. I just wanted to highlight this in 2 minutes and then open the floor for discussion. But yesterday, there was a signal request, as we've seen before, to propose a fast tracking exercise, fast tracking channel for real-world assets application. Now, I just wanted to start with a minute of setting the scene here. We all want real-world assets to be onboarded on Maker. This has never been done before. It is complex. We are talking about huge sums without the transparency of the smart contract construct we're used to, and with a legal setup that is untested. That's why it requires an incredible amount of work. On the other side, borrowers are not our friends. Borrowers actually have conflicting interests with a lender. This is the nature of the beast. Hence, the fact that competent and sophisticated and prudent real-world assets construct within Maker in the core units was created. Now, unfortunately, not all the borrowers will receive a positive feedback. Sometimes these borrowers have blatantly insufficient structures or track record or other issues that the real-world finance core unit needs to address, to work on for the community. Now, the system is not perfect. I know there are a lot of frustrations around because things are slow. We would like them to be faster. Things are improving massively. We're not there yet. But I think personally that providing an opportunity for unhappy borrowers, potentially with political context, to bypass real-world finance and any other core unit for any borrowing application is nuclear. It doesn't provide the community with the required information. It creates an existential threat if we are talking about hundreds of millions that can be onboarded without any analysis, without any counterweight within the community. And I actually think the community should look very carefully on who is asking for this type of back channels and who is actually willing to use it. Because on the other side, we have a lot of counterparties that are very happy, although it's heavy lifting and they have conflicting interests, to work with us to make this work. And I think real-world finance and myself, I'm incubating a lending oversight core unit, as some of you know, have made mistakes in being not public enough of the heavy work we're doing. We will amend it. We'll be much more open. We will create office hours for everybody to chip in. But distrust people that will let you imagine that this thing is easy, because it is not. Now I'll leave it to you guys. Thanks for the couple of minutes.
No problem, Luca. Yeah, obviously it was GovAlpha who put up this signal. So yeah, it's there. We try to be very clear that this wasn't us endorsing the option, but rather trying to facilitate the fact that many people were asking, why isn't there a quicker governance process for this? And the answer was because no one had proposed it yet. So we took the opportunity to ask the community if they think a quicker process should exist. Whatever the community agrees to do is what we'll follow as governance here.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, sound good, Will.
Yeah.
And then we'll come to you after, Justin.
Yeah, so I think I wanted actually as well to complement what you and Luca just said. So the so the thing with this, I guess the issue with the signal requests is we've been spending a significant amount of time actually working with counterparties, and know that we have to have to do a little bit more work in terms of the transparency and communications of it in the farm, not neglecting that in any way. But we've spent a lot of time with counterparties, working with them and being as I guess as gentle as possible in the professionalization of what we are doing. Okay, so we're spending a lot of time kind of saying, like, giving the opportunity to counterparties even actually to comment on the risks that actually are pointed out, so that actually we can find possibly like workable agreements where we can like point out like possible mitigants. And we've been having exactly this approach with everything, with everyone, both external and internal core units that we work with. The key issue I think that I found with the signal request, I expressed this to you guys in private, and actually expressed here in public, is while we've done this in a goodwill approach with the counterparties, we didn't have that reciprocated when the signal request was actually being discussed. To be even honest, the signal request was not even discussed prior to actually submitting it to a call to action. And this is what actually really caused so much disappointment with the signal request. I understand that you guys have the role to facilitate the discussions that actually bubble up to you, and that is fine. It's part of the process. But actually not having the professionalism of actually going and engaging, it is simply like out of this world in terms of in terms of, I guess, normal adults actually interacting with each other, right? I've expressed this actually prior actually to the community. I've got like 4-year-old kids, and this is kindergarten on steroids. And it's extremely, I would say, it's an extremely dangerous prospect. The fact that actually that borrowers can fully self-deal. I'm not saying that there should be any sort of bottlenecks in the system with regards to any particular core unit, but I think the fact that there is actually no interaction and no oversight, this is a nuclear bomb waiting to happen. Okay. In terms of actually the protocol. And this is not only for the real world assets. I know there's actually a lot of people that work necessarily say, oh, real world assets is a completely different thing. This is for all of the protocol. Okay, so I think I would encourage actually the risk professionals that are actually out there and that have I guess, professional integrity to really look at this thing, because this is about your DAI that you hold. It's about the MKR that you hold. If something were about full self-dealing with no oversight went forward, I would say I would essentially leave the protocol tomorrow, because this is really, really serious. And I just want to make it sure. I'm not saying it's about bottleneck core units. I would even say, like, I'm making deliberate efforts to be able to scale the number of core units, professionalize the core units. I'm actually encouraging people to do that, okay? And I'm deliberately encouraging it to happen, but actually having zero relationship between borrower and lender oversight is a nuclear bomb.
Thanks, Will. Only part of that I really wanted to comment on was like, first, like, apologize for not giving the real world finance people a heads up. Lon kind of addressed that in one of the posts on the thread. However, we did like want discussion to take place publicly. So while we agree we really didn't execute this ideally, the kind of benefit of doing it this way was it does cause the discussion to come out into the open, which we felt was something that we were getting feedback a lot that people felt the process was opaque and that the discussion wasn't taking place as publicly as it should. So yeah, do want to apologize. Well, also adding some caveat there, I guess. Perhaps that's a poor apology, but appreciate you, Will.
And I think I guess for context, right, just although being involved for a little while, I only kind of in proper handed over facilitation, including with the possibility of deploying budget for the choices of the core units in one month. Okay, so but in the meantime, because I actually had to oversee one of the worst actually transition processes that actually I think probably the DAO has ever witnessed in terms of handover, and therefore kind of like I just took kind of probably fully that operation for about a month. I'm not rejecting the fact that actually communication needs to be improved. It needs to be improved hugely, but actually the initial focus was really just to getting, just to getting the team, everything in place to be able to kind of to set the mode for actually for its professionalization. I have communicated. I haven't communicated enough on the on the forums, and I'm actually putting in place action plan to be able actually to communicate more proactively and more regularly with the farms to make sure that the process is also more transparent and people actually have access to what is it that we are doing, what is it that we are monitoring, everything in that space. But really we haven't stopped working for the whole month, and I don't even have to say to you, because actually I have deliberate efforts in making sure that we were also not working in isolation. So we're working in collaboration. We built lots of bridges with different teams within the DAO. So actually those teams are also aware of what is it that we're doing, because we've been having not only coordination sessions, but ongoing like workshops with those teams on a weekly basis. And the team is fully engaged. And I want to just make clear, this team is composed of like two risk professionals, one lawyer, and me as facilitator, and Luca is working as part of like as an incubator program currently with the lending oversight community, and has assisted a lot in making sure that the processes of how we are doing things is market, is not off market process. So it's just helping with that professionalization. But anyway, but I'm not saying that our communication has been perfect in any sort of way. And that's my prior focus actually for the month ahead.
Thanks, Will. And I'm going to kick it to Justin now. Appreciate your patience there.
Thank you, Peyton. I think this is somewhat of a discussion between governance and real world assets, so it's not just to let you guys get what you had off your chest. I want to try to zoom out a little bit and try to take maybe something of a larger view on this thing. I can definitely see the frustration that generated this request, but I also think we need to become a little bit better at respecting what the different core units are up to and respecting the competency that is actually in them. I realize that these things are operating at a time scale that seems very slow for crypto natives, but that is because we are on the frontier of finance. We're trying to do something that's never been done before. And we're also trying to do that in an organizational forum that is very novel. These things together creates a communication challenge, and it also causes things to take even more time than they might otherwise do. At the same time, I completely agree with Luca here that we have to be extremely careful in how we approach these things. That the whole protocol survives on trust. If we lose confidence and we lose trust, then we don't have protocol anymore. So we can't afford to have real world assets blow up in our faces. In my view, we're better off not having real world assets than having real world assets that fails. As such, I think we should be extremely careful in how we approach the subject matter and take baby steps to ensure that everything is holding together before we take the next one. And as such, if there is a borrowing application that is brought before a vote and RealWorld Finance has not had a chance to review that, I don't see a scenario where I am going to vote in favor of such a proposal. Because if I see a borrower who is unwilling to interact with RealWorld Finance, that immediately makes me question their motives. I mean, they can be the most professional counterparty I've ever seen, and everything can be extremely well laid out and perfect. And in that case, maybe all RealWorld Finance needs to do is sort of review the proposal and just say, okay, this is perfect, guys, just go for this, without necessarily talking to that counterparty. But unless RealWorld Finance is willing to say this looks good, I can't see myself voting in favor of it.
Thanks, Justin. All right, Maker Man threw his hand up, so I'll kick it over to you next.
Okay, I'll try and keep this short. So, Will, the one thing, I hear you saying we're like a bunch of 5-year-olds here. I've dealt with a lot of DAOs and a lot of calls. I really would like to reduce the inflammatory language. Nuclear seems kind of inflammatory. I think the real issue here is we have players out here who would like some word as to a reasonable timeline for a first agreement, right? And nobody has anything, and people have pushed forward on stuff. I have made it clear that I understand that, real world finance is undergoing a change. I think people are looking for some clarity, from a budgetary perspective. It's like, how long and how much money do we have to throw at this to get one tangible agreement that we feel we can move forward on? And I think that's the real issue, is that this poll came about because of some pushback from people who really want to work with Maker, and they're feeling stuck, and we're not giving them any clarity on any count, whether to say, hey, this might take us a year, right? Or something, right? And so everybody's just kind of on hold, situated and trying to navigate positions, and we're spending a lot of money and we're not finding a lot of traction. And so I think what's really apparent here is that some formal clarity be put forward by the Real World Finance Group that everybody can get behind. And so that's kind of my take here. I agree that it's not good for the protocol to just rampantly move forward on agreements that we can't characterize, that we need at not just one legal team, but a couple. I would like a couple different groups, some careful attention to how the gatekeeping works on this, how they come in, how they're accelerated, who helps them come in, and then how we reject them, and to be careful about how we do that. So it requires time, but we need to get some clarity on how we move forward here. Otherwise, it's just dead.
I want to add something here, because I think, again, we are very bad at communicating evidently, so we need to improve, and the point is taken. But this is incorrect. The Real World Finance, first of all, Real World Finance has been, the team that I am overseeing, supporting, has been in place for 1 month, which is nothing. And in 1 month, pretty much all the counterparties have engaged to improve unsatisfactory legal structures that would not give any right as a borrower to Maker. Any right, zero, to get the money back. I'll be clear. Now, at the same time, we have provided a detailed overview of the requests of Monetalis in this case. I'm calling the names as requested. Now, Those reviews, we have given them the opportunity to amend the proposal because he hasn't published any specific proposal. And hence we haven't published our review because we wanted as gentlemen to give the opportunity to the borrower to reply. The borrower has not replied for a month, never heard from him. He stalled the process and worked with governance. This is bad faith. We will change because apparently gentlemen are not very welcome in DAOs necessarily. We'll try to remain it. We will publish every assessment we have without giving the opportunity to the counterparty to remedy. This is very unprofessional, but we will do it because otherwise we have no protection against ourselves. The analysis on Monetalis has been shared with Monetalis a month ago. No reply. So either Monetalis decides to go through a standard process disregarding our view and our endorsement, and they're free to do it because we're not gatekeepers, but there is no way that Monetalis can say they've been hanging waiting for an answer that has been given them a month ago. This is like a borrower that is asking $400 million without any substantiated fact based on risk management. And because the risk management opinion is negative, lobbies the board of directors for a direct relationship with the board overseeing any internal controls. This is insanity. I will walk away from this protocol and sell every DAI I have if $400 million are given without any risk internal checks and balances, because this is insane. But I don't want anybody to say that they've been hanging waiting, because this team has been providing opinions for weeks and months. Now, if the opinions are not constructive, we are not forced to give any constructive opinion to people that we believe don't have the requirements. This is what we are here. We are here to protect the protocol first and then to help it grow. It would be much easier for me to give away money to random people that come, even professional or not, and be a hero in 6 months' time because there is something in Make and Bird that says that we have delivered $1 billion. So I think this is very important. I'll make it very clear. So this is falsity. We have been gentlemen and we will change our approach by publishing everything. Now ask yourselves, what kind of borrowers are actually not deciding to engage and ask for a direct, like just in case, for a direct relationships with governance, bypassing everything. Ask yourself what type of borrowers there are. I'm not making money in this job. I'm dedicating a lot of time, subpar compensation because I love this protocol. I will walk away and sell every DAI because I can guarantee you that if we give hundreds of millions like this protocol has no long life. And instead of being Maker, it's gonna be another copycat of MIM, Time, Wonderland, whatever you want. Now, just pick your battles. We are doing our job and it's very time consuming because we cannot even engage with top counterparties because we spend all the time protecting our backs politically against this type of movements. This is unacceptable. Now, the rest is with you, but I just want to make sure that everything is clear. So from today, we will publish all the opinions that have been shared with our counterparties before. And I have nothing else to add. I'm sorry if I got heated, but this is worrying.
Thanks, Luca. Going to kick it to you here in a moment, Will. The only thing I feel like I should comment on that wise is like, in a DAO, people can always propose things, right? So there's always going to be some way, whether it's through MIPs or some other structure we pass, that people are able to get their proposals to a vote of the MKR holders. So for governance, our main concern is that if information is not publicly available, then MKR holders are inherently making an uninformed decision. So that's the push for transparency. It's not for you guys to be mean and start like trashing people on the forum or anything like that. It's that if people are going to seek a vote, which there are many avenues to do so, MKR holders need to know what the people they've elected professionally actually do think on the matter. All right, go for it, Will.
Yeah, understood point taken, Peyton. So here the question is more like in a due diligence process, you not necessarily have a single assessment. You have a number of stages that actually can happen in an assessment. This was the case, for example, for Monetalis, where it pointed out a number of key risks and issues in the structure, and therefore with even actually a recommendation of certain mitigants actually to be worked through. And then kind of like we essentially what we got back, and again I have to call names because there's no other way around it, as Lucas was saying, is what we got back. It was I guess blunt rejection of every single issue that was actually pointed out in the assessment. And not only actually they had access to one, but it was actually double opinion of that actually came to very similar conclusions. So we are not actually even saying like it's a he says, she says type of things. We are talking here about people that have worked in the credit arena for 25 years plus. Okay, combined experience probably of the whole team more than 30 years. And on the other side of the equation, actually, people that have all the types of experiences, but not everything is actually like for like. And then we, of course, in the respect of actually the relationship, we went to actually also talk to a few professionals in the industry to say, okay, if you are like for a marketing experience, and they ask that is actually being asked there by the counterparty, can you please express your opinion of whether what kind of like professional firms that are working in a particular jurisdiction in a particular market would get in that market? And that's how we kind of like also formed actually the logic of the opinion. So we're not doing something that is completely out of whack with actually standard actually market experience. And we've expressed, as Lucas said, we expressed these concerns now a month ago, and since then there has been no interaction. And if anything, counterparty has spent the whole month in the farm say like, okay, if you're about to originate $500 million of assets, when are you going to do this? Because you have to spend some time working other than actually just spending all of your time in the farms. Because it's going to be really hard otherwise actually to originate $500 million like that. Right, so it's something that is quite, I guess, quite concerning, but we've been making every single effort to actually operate a gentleman actually and operate in the process of knowing that there are multiple stages in a due diligence process. Is not only like here's a risk assessment and everything is in there, because then there has been no back and forth actually in the communication with the counterparty. That's just not how the process works. But I just wanted to make it clear for the community, and we're gonna try to improve on that communication. So all MIPs holders are aware of the facts going forward.
Thanks, Will. Yeah, this is obviously like a important and kind of like a heated topic. So like, obviously there will be further thoughts. Please do visit the forum and leave them if you have thoughts after this call. It's really important that we continue the discussion there and make sure we're kind of engaging in good discourse. That's it. If there are other questions or points that people would like to make on this topic, now would be a good time to do so.
I think one point that was really interesting to me that I just want to echo is this idea of the borrower versus the lender side of any one of these deals. Like when people come and apply to be collaterals and maker, they are, to a degree self-dealing. That's why it's very important to have very high level quality control and kind of compliance around these. It's not the same as an on-chain asset, where you have immediate recourse. Like you're literally just, approving like unsecured loans if you don't have like a very high caliber of diligence in every one of these deals. And I think a lot of what I'm hearing on the forum is like impatience, which, obviously we want everything to happen very fast. And like, I'll be the first to say, like, I can't wait for billions of dollars to be sourced from real world assets. But I think if Maker is going to survive in the long term, it has to do it at the highest level so that it could attract, the largest market participants and really be a leader in the world. And if we don't do it right, then all of the garbage collateral will attract and we will implode and we will die and it will be just a story in history,
Thanks, David. Any other comments or questions on this topic? And I might give you a few minutes for some of the things you brought up, Irvin.
Okay, so there were, this is unrelated to anything about this topic, there were just a couple of things that were brought up to me recently from somebody, I won't name names, actually I don't know his name, but so I was being asked about the ESM attack and how we should, whether we should lower or raise the amount of Maker in the ESM. So I think currently we stand at 100,000 Maker is required to be locked up and burned in order to shut down the Maker system. And the question was, can someone in principle borrow and buy up that much Maker, shut down Maker, while simultaneously opening a short that would be profitable? Yeah, the emergency shutdown modules, 100,000 Maker. So can someone maliciously exploit that by burning their own 100,000 Maker, shutting down the system, and then profit by shorting Maker on centralized exchanges and DEXs as well? And I think Primoz did some analysis, said that like market buying that much Maker would maybe bump the price 17%. I think it would probably be even more. I kind of looked into this very, very loosely. I looked at some of the liquidity on centralized exchanges, not really anything on chain, but it looks like an attacker would be able to borrow something in the order of 50 or 55,000 Maker between Aave and Compound, putting a bunch of his own collateral at risk to borrow that, right? So if they're borrowing 50,000 Maker, let's say, if it's at $100 million, they might put up $150, $200 million of their own collateral. Then they would have to buy up another 100,000 Maker on market. Let's say they can even get a market price. They've already committed, that's another $100 million at current market price. So they have committed 100 million plus their collateral, almost $300 million to even initiate the attack, which they then burn by shutting down the Maker system. Now, to make a profit, they would have to, at the same time, short somewhere more than 100,000 Maker as it drops 70, 80, 90%. And then they can make a profit. So the upfront capital required would be on the order of probably close to $500 million just to even attempt to execute the attack. And I think that the liquidity is so thin on Maker across the board that there is no way someone can possibly short that kind of volume for Maker and get a profit that exceeds the upfront costs that they put in to just execute the attack. There is one place they could do something using synthetic leverage on gains on trade, but they put a cap of 900% gain on any position. So let's say you wanted to short Maker, you could do 150x short on Maker. But I think right now their current maximum bet is $75,000 with a 900% gain. So you wouldn't really be able to recoup your upfront capital that way. As for liquidity to short that kind of volume anywhere else, I think it's non-existent. The only place I hadn't really looked is synthetics. I would imagine it's also not a viable place to get that kind of short. So I think part of the reason this question came up was because 100,000 makers to do the shutdown, to do the ESM is quite a high number. We want to lower it and reward benevolent actors who trigger it for good reasons, while dissuading malicious actors from exploiting it. And I think that that attack vector is probably not not viable from a financial point of view, though if someone wanted to pull off a Joker style attack where he burns a pile of cash, you know, just for the sake of doing it, if someone had like $500 million laying around that they were like, I want to just destroy the system, they could do that. I don't think they will financially gain, but they might have some sort of gain, you know, for their own way. But yeah, okay, a politician, wait, is that the position? You could take advantage of the DAI volatility. Well, DAI would be shut down, right? So, DAI wouldn't. I'm not even sure DAI would lose its peg, right? It would just become redeemable one-to-one with the collateral as it backs. But I didn't actually consider
after NDF, DAI will no longer be pegged to $1. It'll be pegged to the basket underneath it.
Yeah,
so it will lose its peg.
It will lose its peg, but it'll actually be worth more than $1 because marginally more than $1, right? But like it'll be redeemable for whatever collateral backing it. I think this is I think this particular attack is not financially viable. It would just be maliciously viable. The attacker would likely not gain much, but risk a lot, because if he does any sort of misstep in the attack, he risks losing whatever, all the upfront stuff. He does burn all the money he put in upfront. And the question was brought up because we don't want the ESM to be 100,000 maker. We want it to be a little bit lower. So my default thought was like, well, why don't we just keep like sort of a buffer of like 5 to 10% above all available maker borrowable on Aave compound, rather than 100,000. Those are just sort of like my preliminary thoughts on it. Someone might want to look at what kind of shorting you can do on synthetics. It's possible for, I think this attack is possible for malicious actor looking to just burn their own cash, just purely for the sake of destroying maker, but not to actually financially gain. Is it okay? Oh, there's a bunch of comments.
Yeah.
Yeah,
there's a lot of stuff. I'll give a brief summary.
Yeah, dude. It's a wall of comments.
Basically, people are noting that you could short other instruments, right? You could count on the market instability of DAI losing its peg to have other effects. So there are potential other ways to profit. As far as the higher or lower, right? Like, it's not necessarily to lower it. Like, it could be to higher it. The reason we want to look into the ESM threshold setting is because, like, if it's too low, it can be called maliciously, and if it's too high, it can't be called in a situation where you need it.
Right. The other thing I have in general with the ESM, I do think it's necessary, but let's say the system is genuinely in need of the ESM being triggered. There's very little incentive for anyone who has that kind of maker to opt to burn their maker. I mean, you'll probably get it back if it was a good burn. But if you see the whole thing is about to implode, why wouldn't you just dump your maker rather than burn it? That's essentially a weird disincentive structure. Who here would burn their maker if like DAI is about to just like implode somehow? So we would have to have some kind of bonus of some kind, something that really makes it worth doing. That's something to reconsider as well. I guess there are other. Let me read some of these comments. So people think you can profit off of shorting DAI. Yeah, DAI would run off peg, but it would run off peg up somehow because it would be worth more in the collateral.
Well, unless the collateral basket drops because you just attacked most of DeFi, right?
and
Oh,
flooded
right.
the market with all the value of all the collateral.
Right. All the collateral. Like, ooh. Yeah, it would introduce a whole bunch of probably unpredictable market volatility, which the attacker may or may not be able to predict and take advantage of.
He could just be short everything else.
He could be short everything else, but maybe somehow, for whatever reason, things go up. Who knows? Except for Maker. Synthetic leverage is, I think, that the only place where they can genuinely profit from it. But the one place where I do use synthetic leverage, they do put caps for illiquid source of things, and that's just some of the thoughts there. I like the space shuttle. Let me just read through some of these. I had two other things that I wanted to.
We'll know we are running near time.
Yeah. Okay, last quick thought. This was just really tangential. Some of us like QiDao, My.Finance, some of us don't know about it, some of us don't like it. I think they are a sort of symbiotic relationship with us. They absorb a lot of DAI. They do this thing called partial liquidations. They're very friendly liquidations, and I know it's probably a lot of overhead to build. It might not make any sense for us to do that. But the way their liquidation system works is you have some debt, and they apply a liquidation penalty to your debt, and then they sell half of your, at least half of your debt goes to be liquidated if you're being liquidated. So they sell collateral to cover half your debt, leaving you with approximately 40% of your collateral is sold instead of all of it, right? Probably too much overhead for us to build, maybe not necessary, but we have one of the most vicious liquidations in the DeFi space. I don't see anything wrong with the 13% liquidation penalty, but I think we could, there may be something to gain by doing partial liquidations, like the 7 siblings, whatever, right? So like, if instead of liquidating their entire $600 million vault or anyone's entire vault, then you liquidate half of it, right? So you'll introduce people allowing themselves to get liquidated, but it would probably put less stress on our entire liquidation system, having to liquidate less at a time, moving their collateral ratio up, and they wouldn't get liquidated again for a long time. If anyone thinks that's a topic worth looking into, just take a look at what My.Finance does. Maybe this is a good thing on L2. I don't know.
Awesome. Well, I suggest we maybe continue that conversation in the forums, Ruben. Definitely a worthwhile one to have. As liquidations are a big pain point for users, obviously.
They should be using DeFi.
Many open source options, right? Anyone could develop any sort of automation technique, and that's one of the beautiful things.
I have a quick question about sort of like multi-collateral DAI, slave instances of it, and then how the protocol upgrades itself. Like, is this slave instance just copying what's on like whatever the parent is, or is there like nuance? Like, will upgrades have to be sort of like compatible across different networks and languages? Like I'm super curious about this question.
Yeah, it's a big answer. I can answer that, I guess. So yeah, the current plan is to basically just copy MCD as it is to get something online. MCD in and of itself can be extended basically in any way possible. You can see that with the new sort of collaterals we're adding, like crop join stuff, as well as the institutional vaults. So We can definitely extend MCD in any which way we want, but yeah, you can think of the slave instances as sort of just a duplicate of MCD at this stage.
Got it. So then once like this version of MC gets upgraded with, for example, you know, like rate limiting individual vaults, or you know, a different surplus buffer management system, or like a new emergency shutdown module, or like whatever it might be, those slave instances have to be dealt with like separately as a second order thing, right?
Yeah, it depends on the module. I mean, stuff like shutdown is not exactly the same. As well as there's like differences in how the surplus and deficits are managed. But yeah, so to be clear, the VAT can never be redeployed without some Herculean effort on layer 1. So that is immutable, more or less. And but what we can do is sort of tack new features on with just kind of attaching them to the VAT, I guess, with a new type of module. So we can get these new features, but it's not like it's replacing the current VAT.
Good stuff. I'm sure if we have any new listeners, we really just sent you off or down a giant rabbit hole. So if it's the latter, please reach out to us, and happy to give you some resources and documentation. All right, with that said, we are past our scheduled time for today. I see Chris unmuting.
Oh no, I was just going to say that, yeah, at some point, maybe we should have a nice little session where we just like discuss it. I think some parts of the plan are still being written up, but everyone will really get a kick out of seeing how technically feasible it's going to be, and they'll get I think everyone will end up with a good mental model of how we expand the protocol. So it'll be a useful discussion.
One thing I'll add is for layer 2, we can actually redeploy the VAT. So if there's some future upgrade we want to tack onto it, we could actually do a new deployment on L2 because it's not the master instance.
Good to know. Thanks, guys. And yeah, be more than happy to help facilitate that call. All right. Well, thank you, everyone, for your time and attention. We had a lot of discussion today. I'd like to continue it in the forums. Like I said, that's a great place for preserving the longevity of what we discussed and why. Really appreciate everyone who came out today. And yeah, we'll see you same time, same place next week.